hope I learned something. I hope I learned something. I hope I learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the daily All Hat, No Cattle News Rodeo. I'm your host, Hat. Welcome, JF, in the D-Live chat. And, of course, hello, Trovo in YouTube. Nice to have you all with us today. It is a really weird day today. A lot of dark news, I'm sorry to say. But we're going to get into it all. As you can see, I have a headline story regarding the dark side, black hat hackers. Also news about the current economic crisis that we are sliding into. For the after show, I have a horrible story about the death of a couple of Texas law enforcement officers from just the other day. Details aren't completely fleshed out yet, but we do have a mugshot and the name of the attacker. And then also some serious border news, including a letter sent by 20 U.S. governors to Biden and Harris, basically saying, fix the damn border. And we will get into that and much more during the news rodeo today. But first, as I just teased, the hacker group DarkSide, this story came out on Seeking Alpha just an hour ago, an hour and a half ago at best. DarkSide has claimed it's attacked 3 new corporate targets. The names have been reportedly posted to the dark web. I don't have them as of yet. I believe everybody's waiting for public confirmation from the companies named so as not to start a panic. According to DarkSide, though, one of the companies is in Illinois, here in the U.S., one in the United Kingdom, and one in Brazil. And again, no details as of yet. Interestingly note, though, FireEye, Palo Alto Networks, and CrowdStrike have all seen pretty significant losses today after this. So interesting developments there. All right, moving right along. Normally, I do the market after the first Babylon Bee, but today was such a bloodbath. I wanted to lead with it just to get it out of the way because it was an absolutely horrendous day on the market. Every major indices was down by almost 2% to just over 2.5%. An absolute crush on the market today. The Dow Jones fell well below 34,000. It's now sitting at 33,632 and change. The S&P 500 flirted with falling below 4,000. It's sitting just above 4,000 at the moment. And the NASDAQ as well almost fell below 13,000, sitting just above that right now. Gold, for some reason, slid. Interestingly enough, you don't normally see that when the market falls. Normally you see gold rise, but gold has been sliding off and on for some time now. And Bitcoin actually saw a large loss today, over 4% from its previous mark, down just over 54,000 at the moment. By the way, I checked Ethereum. It has declined as well. Not as much as Bitcoin. Ethereum has been seeing quite a resurgence lately. In fact, its market cap is now just about half of Bitcoin, which is a record for Ethereum. But it also saw a bit of a slide today. So interesting all the way around. The only technical winner was crude oil. It's currently sitting at $65.80 per barrel of West Texas Intermediate sweet crude, but that is down almost $1 from its price yesterday. So even crude oil saw a bit of a slip today, interestingly enough. But what I have in front of you is the 5-day look at the market. So this goes back to last Wednesday. When they say 5-day, they mean 5 business days. And as you can see here, I'm looking at the Dow right now. For about 2.5 hours, maybe 3.5 hours tops, back on the 10th, the Dow actually broke 35,000. I did not know that. I obviously wasn't paying attention at that moment in time. So between about 10:50 and 2:10 in the afternoon that day, the Dow was over 35,000 for the first time ever. But it retreated before the end of the day, which is where I came in, so I did not notice it had gone that high. But it has been, as you can see here, on a downward trajectory ever since, except for a few leveling offs that happened on Monday. It has been a very, very, very steep decline. And the S&P 500, same thing, near record highs, if not record highs, and then aside from a plateau on Monday, a sharp decline, and the NASDAQ even more so. The NASDAQ is at a level now it hasn't seen since, I believe, early April was the last time the NASDAQ was this low. So some really, really concerning numbers for all of that. The Dow did stage a couple of brief rallies today, but normally those are actually people buying stocks on the discount. As the prices fall, they'll jump in and buy stocks on the discount and hope they can sell them again on the rise. Day traders do that all the time. But as you can see today, there really were no significant rises to play on. They were very short-lived. So very, very brief moments of happiness for any day traders today. I'm sure a lot of people lost their shirts trying to day trade today because a very, very steeply sloping market is not good for day traders. They look for the lows, but then the highs to follow. So a really, really tough day for everybody in the market today, including Ethereum and Bitcoin. All right, let's get to our first Babylon Bee bookend of the day, and we'll pick things up. This is the one on the left from their politics and world section. Very, very timely for the Babylon Bee. Biden continues rollback of Trump policies like peace in the Middle East. We will, of course, get into the latest in the battle between the Arabs and Israel later on. I didn't lead with it today like I did yesterday. But anyway, continuing with the Babylon Bee here. Dateline Washington, D.C. A spokeswoman for President Biden said Wednesday that he remains committed to rolling back all of former President Donald Trump's policies, including peace in the Middle East. Palestinians in the West Bank voiced their collective approval by launching celebratory rockets into Israel. Quoting White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, everything President Trump did was completely wrong, so the opposite of what he did must be right. Thus, the Biden administration remains committed to doing the opposite of everything Donald Trump did in the Middle East as well. Close quote. Psaki said the administration's new Middle East policy calls for as much violence as it takes to completely eradicate the peace brought about by Donald Trump. Quoting Psaki again, the people of this region lost many good years of violence and bloodshed. We're going to make that up to them, even if it takes decades of war to do so. Close quote. A reporter asked if peace in the Middle East was actually a good thing, no matter which president brought it about, but Psaki rejected that notion outright, quoting, "Let's not lose sight of the most important factor here, which is Orange Man bad." Close quote. Psaki then noted that the Biden administration is committed to rolling back many other Trump policies, such as affordable gasoline, low unemployment rates, and general economic prosperity. Quoting Psaki one last time, "We're going to do the opposite. All that stuff has got to go." Close quote. Thank you, Babylon B. And now, as I said, the economy. Folks, this is something, along with the market crash today, that I unfortunately predicted. I am not in the habit of touting my predictions coming true because they're almost always bad. Normally I'm wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. It proves that I'm as fallible as any other human out there. But in these two instances, I was exactly right. I knew the market was going to crash. I expected it to take a little longer than it did. But I also knew inflation was going to start absolutely exploding, as did many other people. It's not like I'm Nostradamus, but I'm right on board with all these prognosticators. And I've got an article here from the Daily Wire by Tim Pierce, and it shows that the Consumer Price Index rose 0.8% in April, capping the largest 12-month jump in prices since the period ending in 2008, after the beginning of the Great Recession. The April jump in CPI was driven by a 10% hike on used cars and trucks, the largest jump for the market on record. Now, as I understand it, the reason used vehicles went up so much is because new vehicles are being delayed in production because the manufacturers can't get the semiconductor chips they need for such things as emissions control and for driving the airbags. These things are all run by computer, and without a chip, you ain't got no computer. And chip manufacturing has been sliced significantly because of all the COVID shutdowns, and now we're seeing just one of the many pinches as a result of that. And this holdup in new vehicle deliveries has been going on for some time now, at least several months. So this is just, continuing the article. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported over the last 12 months, the All Items Index increased 4.2% before seasonal adjustment. This is the largest 12-month increase since a 4.9% increase for the period ending September 2008. The 12-month inflation rate soared past the expectations of economists, who expected inflation to fall around 3.6% and 0.6% lower than the actual spike. Core CPI jumped by 0.9% in April, the largest one-month hike since April 1982, and that's according to Bureau of Labor and Statistics, not Breitbart. And just in case you've forgotten, we're still dealing with the Colonial Pipeline shutdown. At least 4 states have declared states of emergency right now because of gasoline being in short supply. Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia, to name them. And of course, the White House has been incredibly tight-lipped about all of this. The best we've gotten is a podium appearance by Secretary of Energy Granholm, where she smiled continuously as she laid out the problems caused by all of the things I've just listed. The gas price hiking, the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack, et cetera, et cetera. She was literally smiling ear to ear as she talked about all of these problems because, of course, these are fossil fuel problems, and Greenholm believes that anyone who uses a fossil fuel to heat or cool or drive or cook should be thrown in prison for daring to add to the carbon footprint, whatever that is, to the world. Again, I'm going to say it again. She was actually smiling as she talked about all the hardships people are going through right now because of the insane policies of this administration, coupled with a ransomware attack. I'm not blaming that on Biden specifically, but it's interesting that it happened now and not, say, a year ago. Just saying, just saying. So, also, gasoline prices have absolutely surged. There's an article again from the Daily Wire by Ryan Saavedra from today, quoting the AAA. On the week, the national gas price average jumped 6%. Pardon me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Jumped 6 cents to $2.96. This is an increase of 3 more cents. If the trend continues, an increase of 3 more cents would make the national average the most expensive since November 2014, the last time we saw average prices at $2.99 and higher. But by Wednesday, the national average price for gas had jumped to just over $3. So that means gas is now at its highest point in 6.5 years. 6.5 years. Remember, cheap gas, folks? Forget it. May never be coming back. So the other part of the spectrum is, of course, jobs. And we have a jobs crisis in America, too. Specifically, people aren't applying or showing up for work because they're making so much money on unemployment, they can afford not to. You may remember that the last American whatever thing passed in March by this administration on a purely party line vote. Not one Republican voted for it in either house. It was only gotten through the Senate because of reconciliation, which allows budget items to go through on a simple majority. And since the Senate is split 50-50, that allowed Harris to cast the deciding vote as president of the Senate, thereby letting this go through, this $2 trillion boondoggle. And included in that was a $300 a week, not month, week, additional federal unemployment insurance payout till September. Yes, you can make over $40,000 a year sitting on your butt till September. Luckily, some states are fighting against that. I'll have that in a moment. But turns out, not only did we have a really bad jobs report last week, remember, economists, including Larry Kudlow, were expecting a million jobs to be added to the rolls in the month of April. Instead, it was an addition of 266,000, a miss of over 700,000, which is the largest miss in decades, absolute decades. Some people said it's the largest miss ever, depending on how you looked at it. But it's not just those job numbers that turned out to be as bad, worse than possibly expected. Turns out the March job numbers weren't as good as we were told. I've got this article here from Bloomberg, quoting it. U.S. employers added just 266,000 workers in April, missing all estimates. The increase of 916,000 jobs in March, here we go, was revised down to 770,000, meaning that the net number of people employed over the past month relative to what was known just hours ago was a mere 120,000. Hiring was so sparse that the unemployment rate increased last month to 6.1%, the first time it has moved higher since April of 2020. April of 2020. Remember what happened in April of last year? Oh, that's right, the entire economy shut down. Thank you so much, JF. I may be able to repay that favor. I may be able to. I can't say for sure, but I'm hoping to. Let me just leave it at that. All right. So, just in case you believe the White House that the additional unemployment benefits are not what's causing the crunch in people signing up to work or showing up to work, I've got an article here from the American Action Forum. This is from February 8th. And I won't go into quoting it significantly, But let me just read the bullet points here. As a part of his $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, Biden has proposed increasing the weekly federal unemployment supplement to $400 from $300. Actually, it wound up capping up at $300, in addition to extending emergency unemployment programs through September. At the $300 level, 37% of workers could make more on unemployment than at work. 37%. Increasing the weekly federal supplement will affect each state differently, with one seeing only 25% of workers who could make more on unemployment under the change, and, get this, another seeing nearly 70% of workers who could make more on unemployment. But remember, folks, we've been told that that's not what's creating the job crunch. That's not what ran the numbers into the ground for April. Not at all. Not at all. Nothing to see here from the most transparent and truthful administration ever. That's what they said. Their words, not mine. So luckily, some states are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, is illuminated by cutting off these massive increases in unemployment benefits. A number of states, and I'll enumerate them at the end of this article, have already said they're cutting off the hose of federal unemployment benefit extensions and demanding people either get to work or show that they are looking for work in order to qualify for unemployment. But all of these states are going to be cutting off the federal additional funds very, very quickly, although one's delaying it till July, and that would be Tennessee. I have an article here from the Epoch Times by Mimi Win Lee, and it says here, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee and Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds announced that all federal pandemic unemployment programs will soon end in their respective states. According to Governor Lee, the benefits will stop on July 3rd. Quoting him, "We will no longer participate in federal pandemic unemployment programs because Tennesseans have access to more than 250,000 jobs in our state. Families, businesses, and our economy thrive when we focus on meaningful employment and move on from short-term federal fixes." On the same day in Iowa, Governor Reynolds also announced an end to the benefits, saying the payments effectively discourage people from going back to work. Quoting Governor Reynolds further, who is great, by the way. I saw her on a panel, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, with Laura Ingraham. She did one of her town halls, and Governor Reynolds was one of the people in that group. I think she was the only female governor in the group, actually. Kristi Noem was conspicuously absent, but it was really, really nice to see Governor Reynolds step up and show her mettle as really one of the best female governors I think has ever been. But quoting Governor Reynolds after this hagiography of her, federal pandemic-related unemployment benefit programs initially provided displaced Iowans with crucial assistance when the pandemic began, but now that our businesses and schools have reopened, these payments are discouraging people from returning to work. Our unemployment rate is at 3.7%. Vaccines are available to anyone who wants one, and we have more jobs available than unemployed people. So again, in Tennessee, the benefits won't end until July 3rd. I'm not exactly sure why that governor is waiting so long, but in Iowa, they will end June 12th. So they're going to cut off the $300 weekly payment from the feds. They're going to also cut off the benefits for gig workers and self-employed and part-time workers. They're going to cut off the benefits for the extension of benefits, and they're going to cut off the mixed earner unemployment compensation, and that provided a $100 additional benefit to certain people with mixed earnings, and all of those are going away. Those were all federal programs, unemployment programs created last year. Some of them were created last year, and under the initial CARES Act. But obviously, the government has definitely gone a step too far, and these governors are rolling it back in. To quote Steely Dan in the DLive chat, perfectly put, you don't work, you don't eat. Isn't that Dan Bongino you're quoting, good sir? I believe that's Dan Bongino. Very well said, very well said, sir. Very well said. And good afternoon, LB. Very nice to see you. and to our other Mad Hatters. Love the image, by the way, the sticker there on DLive. That's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. All right, moving right along. So, concerning the Colonial Pipeline shutdown, as I teased earlier, we've got 4 states that have implemented states of emergency right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up just a second. I completely forgot. Please forgive me. Again, my memory is shot. The other states that have discontinued these extended benefits include Montana, South Carolina, Arkansas, Iowa, and Alabama. Florida is about to follow suit. They haven't done so quite yet. So there is that. All right, now let's get along with it. Okay, so again, 4 states have issued states of emergency because of the gas outages caused by the pipeline shutdown. They are Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia. Quoting this article by Amanda Prestigiacomo, I'm pronouncing that right, Amanda, from the Daily Wire. These states of emergency allow state governments to activate the National Guard as needed and helps streamline cooperation between state and local officials. And of course, Biden has basically done nothing about this, we've been told this is a private matter. The Colonial Pipeline is a public. I'm tripping over my own words. Please forgive me. The Colonial Pipeline is a private company, so says the Biden administration. Therefore, we're not involved in this. And Governor DeSantis just laid it out on Hannity here. He's quoting him. The Biden administration needs to take this seriously. Their initial response is, oh, this is a private pipeline, and then they just shrug their shoulders. This is important infrastructure for our country, and it could impact our economy greatly if they don't respond. That's exactly what's happening. So far, the administration has loosened certain constraints on trucking companies as far as hours worked and other regulatory items that make it more difficult for trucks to transport fuel from stations to the different facilities. But that's again, as far as the Secretary of Energy is concerned, this is a great thing for our country that people who don't drive electric cars are struggling, are stranded. And that's actually almost a direct quote. She said, well, these people don't drive electric cars. Because everyone in America can afford a, $65,000 Tesla? I think that's what the baseline Tesla goes for, is about $65K. And remember, if you do buy a Tesla, you're going to need to upgrade the electrical system in your house, because you just can't plug one of those cars into a 120-volt outlet and expect it to charge. No, you're going to need a high voltage output to charge those cars. I think it's got to be a 220, and that takes a professional electrician, and it costs hundreds of dollars and hours, at least 2 hours of work to splice the line and add the 220 outlet. At least 2 hours of work, if not more. And again, if you get away with paying maybe $300-400 for that, you're doing well. Especially now that electricians and other skilled workers are in such high demand. So good luck even getting one right now. You might as well try to go out and buy 9mm hollow point. Moving right along. Okay, little government news here. I've got some federal news and then some state news. First off, we all saw this coming from miles away, and it finally happened. An article here from the Daily Wire by Ryan Saavedra again. Liz Cheney has been booted as the House chair on the Republican side. She was number 3 in the House, and she is no longer. And not even her defenders from the Democrats stood up for her. Jeff Van Drew, who former Democrat, voted no confidence, and not even Kinzinger, the radical rhino from Illinois, not even he stood up for her. So it's pretty much a bloodbath, and she is out. So in case you were wondering who had things to say about that. There would be one, President Donald Trump, who came out this morning, and he wrote the following on donaldjtrump.com/desk, a place that you should bookmark now and forever, and also sign up for his alerts. It's very easy to do. Just go to donaldjtrump.com, and it'll be simple as pie. So to quote 45, Liz Cheney is a bitter, horrible human being. I watched her yesterday and realized how bad she is for the Republican Party. She has no personality or anything good having to do with politics or our country. She is a talking point for Democrats, whether that means the border, the gas lines, inflation, or destroying our economy. She is a warmonger whose family stupidly pushed us into the never-ending Middle East disaster, draining our wealth and depleting our great military, the worst decision in our country's history. I look forward to soon watching her as a paid contributor on CNN or MSDNC. MSDNC. JF says it would cost at least $1,000 to move 220 to the garage. Really, $1,000? Wow, I'm okay. I'll defend myself slightly. I'm thinking in 1990s terms because I had a high voltage output put in my garage in order to power a heat pump to cool and dehumidify my garage when I was building the airplane. It was a fiberglass airplane, so you need very strict climate controls in order for the fiberglass and epoxy to cure properly. If it's too hot, it cures too quickly. If it's too cold, it won't cure at all. And if it's too humid, then it doesn't bond. And your fiberglass layers will actually peel apart over time. They'll stick initially. You think that they're good, but over time, those weak bonds will get weaker and weaker, and then you're flying along. And this happened to a guy. It was because of space heater deposits from a poorly designed space heater, as opposed to he was using a diesel type kerosene. Thank you, a kerosene style space heater. But it's the same concept. You get that moisture or that particulate between the layers, and they don't bond properly. And you're flying, and everything's fine. And then one part starts to lift, and the whole thing comes apart like confetti. This guy's airplane literally fell apart while landing. He was just maybe a quarter mile from landing on the runway, and his airplane disintegrated. The wings just fell apart. And boom, he died. And I almost had that happen to me. I bought one of those space heaters before I read that story, but it almost killed me. It was too high output, and the fumes almost destroyed me. I took it back that day, and then had the heat pump put in, and I never looked back. But thank you for that very much, JF. Steely Dan also mentions in the D Live chat the price of the charger for the system. That's a very good point. I didn't even think of that. Thank you. And welcome so much, Melissa3838, to the channel. Nice to see you again. And of course, Ray, wonderful to see you. Skullcram lays it out, delaminated. That's the word I wanted. Thank you so much, sir, delaminated. Once again, the chat doing the heavy lifting here on All Hat No Cattle. Moving right along. Looks like it's going to be a shorter day on YouTube today. We'll see what happens. So you guys are going to notice, by the way, in case you haven't already, you're going to see a lot of the Daily Wire, the Epoch Times, Just the News, and the Post Millennial from now on. I subscribe, my wife and I subscribe to all four of those sites. And for a while, I was just using Dan Bongino's excellent news aggregation site, bongino.com. But I realized that I was short shrifting outlets that we were paying for. We were paying good money for. So I decided to put them back up at the top of the search list for my sources, and so I went there. So you may be seeing a lot of these, but there is a reason for that. We're paying for these services, so I see it only fit to highlight them in the show. If you feel that I'm using too much of one source or another, or more than one, please feel free to leave a comment. Certainly, those of you on Rumble, feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. If you think I'm using too much from any of these sources, I'd be happy to try and pare it back, be a little more judicious, and go from there. But I'm trying to do it for y'all, so hopefully we'll be able to figure it out. Steely Dan says he flies a Quicksilver ultralight. Wow, the Quicksilver, very nice bird, very nice bird. My dad built a rotorcraft. It is a Oh shoot, I can't remember the name of it now. I can't remember the name of the company. They're very well known in the rotorcraft industry. But he built the sucker, flew it. Never soloed in it though. He couldn't get down the landing. He's older. He was in his mid 70s at the time, early 70s, I think actually. And he had an excellent instructor. Don't get me wrong. I flew with the guy. In fact, I was the only other person to fly the aircraft except for him and his instructor. Beautiful flyer. Had a problem with the control system that I got them to fix. Otherwise, the things were great. But he couldn't get down the landings. He kept getting so caught up in everything else that he couldn't flare properly, and he kept planting it. And he finally gave up. He's like, you know what, this isn't working. I'll put it away. He still hasn't done anything with it. He needs to donate it or sell it or something. There was one point in time where the company was offering to buy them back. He got hold of them, but they never got back to him. And it is a perfectly built aircraft. I watched it constructed. In fact, I'll brag on myself. If it wasn't for me, he may never have gotten it off the ground. He was having a particular problem getting a very important bearing on the drive shaft of the motor. It's a Rotax motor, and he kept failing. And if he got to a point where he couldn't get it on any further, the engine would be trash because the shaft would be ruined. And we talked about it, and we figured out a way to heat up the bearing to get it to expand and soften it a little bit. And we got it nice and hot. And I was right there with him as he's driving it onto the shaft of the engine, and he quit. He's like, I don't think it's moving. And I said, no, do not quit. Do not quit. Keep going. And about 10 whacks later, it moved significantly, and it went on after that. There was just a little spot on the shaft that was a bit higher in diameter than the rest of it, and it was holding up that bearing. But we finally got it on. And he would have quit if I hadn't been there. I know it for a fact, because he said so afterwards. He said, I would have quit if you hadn't kept pushing me. And that would have been the end of that engine. That bearing was not going to come off unless you cut it off. And that right there heats up the shaft, and that creates all kinds of problems. But so I am proud of that. But it was a sweet flyer. It really was. It was a sweet flyer. And Ray flies the F-22. Of course you do, Ray. Of course you fly the Raptor. I wouldn't expect anything less of you. And Ray says it's my birthday, by the way. I will not comment on that. I never comment on my birthday. Yeah, Steely Dan says Rotexes are great. Yeah, I was going to put a 912 in my Europa. The 912 or not the 914. That's the turbo. I never want a turbo. I don't like turbos. They're just another part to go wrong. But I believe I was going to put in the 912, the 912S. That's it. Yeah, the 100 horsepower, normally aspirated. The 912S. That's what I wanted. I'd almost put money down on one, and then I wound up selling the aircraft for a bunch of money. I actually made money on that kit. No one makes money on a partial kit, but I did. I made a lot of money on that kit. All right, moving right along then. This story I did not know about. This came as news to me, but it seems that the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office sent a notice, a formal complaint to the Federal Communications Commission, accusing a local affiliate, WBFF Fox 45, of endangering the lives of that attorney, known by Marilyn Mosby. She said that the Fox News story endangered her life and the lives of her family with, quote, racist news coverage. Racist news coverage. Well, here's the thing. This is a picture, by the way, of the one attorney Marilyn Mosby. She is under a criminal investigation right now for her dealings in her office, and it is ongoing. And it is not a secret. And part of that investigation, that criminal investigation, was started by reporting by WBFF. In fact, just last week, they received 4 local Edward R. Murrow Journalism Awards, in part for their excellent investigative reporting. But for some reason, Mosby, a state attorney, decided that she needed to get the FCC to shut down WBFF for, quote, racist reporting. And the FCC responded in a not kind way. Let me quote a little bit of the missive from FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr, where he rips into Mosby, and I'm quoting Tim Pierce from the Daily Wire on that. Ripped into is a quote from him. Let me read just part of Carr's statement. The complaint Mosby filed with the FCC asks the commission to censor a newsroom simply because journalists are doing their constitutionally protected jobs and shining a light on the work of the state's attorney. Invoking the power of the state to silence journalists for unfavorable coverage strikes at the very heart of the First Amendment. Indeed, let me back up. It is particularly troubling that a public official would work to silence reporters that are investigating her work at a time when federal prosecutors have already opened a criminal investigation into her activities. The state's attorney's office complaint alleges that there is, quote, troubling, aberrant, and downright dangerous, unquote, conduct going on here. They are correct in this respect. It is the conduct of the state's attorney's office that is troubling, aberrant, and outright dangerous. The commissioner goes on to reference other Democrats trying to shut down free speech in this country because they don't like it. But that is quite possibly the most out-and-out angry response from an FCC chairman I have ever seen. And again, I have a degree in media production. I studied the FCC. One of my classes was broadcast law. And so I know from the FCC, and that is not a normal communication from them. I mean, to call out the Baltimore City State's attorney for being under federal investigation in part of their denial of that request. Now, the full board hasn't voted on this yet, but I believe it's still a conservative majority on the FCC. I'm pretty sure Carr is a Trump appointee. I could be wrong there, but I'm 90% certain the FCC currently is conservative in majority. So I don't see that Mosby's complaint is going to go very far. But I'm going to have to keep an eye on Marilyn Mosby and see exactly how this investigation runs. It'll be interesting to see. And good White Fox, Liz, so nice to see you. It's been a while, my dear. Very, very nice to see you. I hope things are going well with you and your grandkids. Oh, it's a delight. So, this is a story I've been wanting to cover for a couple days now, and I keep getting caught up in other events and have been ignoring it, much to my chagrin. But I finally found an opening today, and I can get into it. Sarah Liang, she's a reporter for the Hong Kong edition of the Epoch Times. And this is an article by them from Eva Fu. And the Epoch Times is one of the only independent news organizations left in Hong Kong. That's where the Epoch Times comes from. And they have done great reporting out of China. They started a San Francisco office some years ago. Now they also have a Canadian outlet. And their newspapers used to be free all over the place. But CCP operatives were attacking the kiosks and jamming them with slugs or pouring epoxy into the slots or just sledgehammering them, things like this, making it impossible for people to get the paper. So they ultimately had to pull the kiosks entirely because before it was free, and then the CCP operatives would just come along in trucks and steal all the papers and drive away. So then they went to pay. They started sabotaging the boxes. So now you can get it digitally or you can get it through delivery. You can have a physical copy of the Epoch Times delivered to your door. I prefer the digital. News print material around here gets ignored quite a bit because we're both so busy digitally. Anyway, Sarah Liang was attacked the other day while coming out of her apartment, as I understand it. Some guy walked up to her and smacked her 10 times with an aluminum softball bat as she was outside of her apartment building. And got a picture here of her knee. This is after she was released from the hospital. And as you can see, that is blown up a good 4 times normal size, that knee. It is, you can see there's a very large hematoma there, which is basically another word for a blood-filled bruise. on the inside of that knee. These are fresh bruises. They are going to get really ugly over time, but that is a very, very serious soft tissue injury, and it's going to be very painful and take a while to heal. She's going to have to watch out for blood clots, because the injuries like this, especially deep tissue injuries to the leg, can cause blood clots to form. And if you're lucky, they'll break up over time. If you're unlucky, they'll become what's known as a deep vein thrombosis, or DVT, and that's a clot that forms in a large deep vein, and that can block blood flow from your leg to the heart, and that can create all kinds of circulation problems, and you could lose a limb. They're very painful, very difficult to treat without having to be on blood thinners for a long period of time. And the worst possible outcome, though, is if you get a DVT and it or a piece of it breaks off and lodges in your pulmonary vein. The pulmonary vein is the vein that carries blood, oxygenated blood, pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery is the blood vessel that carries blood from the right side of your heart to the lungs. The pulmonary vein is the only vein in the body. The pulmonary artery is the only artery in the body that carries unoxygenated blood. And the pulmonary vein, which returns the blood from the lungs to the left side of the heart, that's the only vein in the body that carries oxygenated blood. Because typically, arteries are the vessels that connect the heart to other places, and then the veins are the vessels that connect other places to the heart. So that's the reason for the obverse in those two. But if you throw a clot from a deep vein thrombosis into your pulmonary artery, you can die in very quick order. Pulmonary emboli are very difficult. Pulmonary artery emboli are very difficult to treat quickly. You have to get to the hospital immediately, and you have to be hit with a clot busting drug fast, very fast, or you'll die. Your heart will basically just stop pumping because of the back pressure. It's like overloading a water pump. It's the same exact principle. This doesn't look all that horrible, but this could be a life-threatening injury depending on how it's treated. And she's in China, so we'll see how good the medicine is for independent journalists in now CCP-controlled Hong Kong. But God bless her. This article also mentions that she's been being followed regularly as of late. Quoting the article here, on Saturday, a man who donned a black cap and covered himself in full black ran towards Liang while she was waiting for the bus. She observed a black bar fall out of his pocket. The man picked it up and left shortly after. She also found a middle-aged man was following her on April 26 when she stepped out of a local train station. Liang purposely circled the neighborhood to throw him off, but the man walked into the store where she had arranged an interview, seemingly knowing where she was headed. He sprinted away after Liang confronted him. And this is a picture of the guy following Liang back just a few days ago. Now, some U.S. lawmakers and journalist associations have come out in support of this brave journalist, and decrying what is obvious CCP aggression towards her, trying to get her to back off from reporting. But suspiciously in this article, not one Democrat is quoted as being for this journalist. Not one Democrat. Now, that could be the fault of the Epoch Times. I'm not saying that this is a definitive proof that the Democrats don't give a damn, but it is interesting that none of them were quoted in this article. So we're going to get into what's going on in Israel right now, including a very disturbing story about an Israeli city that was noted for its cooperation amongst the Israeli and Arab populace, a town called Lod, that had 30% Israeli Arabs, and what has happened there since this new intifada, my word, has started. But we'll get into that in a moment. First off, one of my favorite Congress critters of all time, Rashida Tlaib, anti-Semite, Michigan. It seems that she spoke at a rally yesterday in D.C., and the chant from the crowd was from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And they repeated that over and over. Now, for some reason, Edge doesn't let me show certain videos. They say that it's using too many resources on my computer, so it pulls them. I'm going to have to seriously think about using Edge from now on because of that. But if a Republican had been at a rally where people were shouting for the arrest of Governor Whitmer, the Democrats would be pulling their hair out and lighting themselves on fire. Yet one of their favorite Congress critters appears at a rally where people are definitively calling for the elimination of Israel from the face of the earth. I went over this phrase yesterday. From the river to the sea means that you are going to go all the way across, all the way to from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean and rip Israel off the map. That is exactly what that means. And I would play some video of her, but to be honest, the idiot is wearing a mask outside, even though the CDC has said you don't need to do that. In fact, we just found out recently that the CDC has been lying about the numbers, about how easy it is to get COVID outdoors. Their line had been it's less than 10%, when in fact we just found out that it was actually less than 0.01%. Which is a factor of, for those of you who have a little hard time with arithmetic, that's a factor of 1,000. But far be it from the CDC, the most politicized CDC in history, to get things right. But here they are, anyway, wearing masks. And so Tlaib's wearing this stupid mask, and you can barely understand her in this cell phone footage. So it's not worth playing. But she is, of course, claiming that Israel is engaged in ethnic cleansing. And I have no idea where they get that. Israel is literally calling the apartment buildings that they're about to bomb and telling the apartment managers, get everybody out because we're going to destroy this building. So move everybody. And I just found this out today watching Ben Shapiro. Israel has developed something called the knock bomb, or as Picasso calls it, the knock-knock bomb. They drop this knock bomb on top of a building, and it's a concussive device, not an explosive device. And it sends a shockwave through the building, enough to let everybody know that Israel is about to destroy this building. So get out. So people have time to evacuate the premises, and then Israel destroys the building. I'm sure you've all seen the video of a 13-story apartment block that was collapsed by Israeli attacks yesterday, and no one died in that. No one died in that because everyone had ample opportunity to get out of the building, including Hamas. The Israelis knew Hamas was in that building. That's why they destroyed it, because it was the Hamas intelligence center. But Hamas had every opportunity to get their people out of the building, so to not die in the collapse. Israel's actually giving Hamas a chance to get away. That's how this war is being played. I'm not saying Israel's perfect by any stretch. People are dying. We don't have the real numbers because Hamas and the PLA, the Palestinian Authority, and that PLA was Yasser Arafat's group. But Hamas and the PA consistently lie about deaths on the Palestine side, including blaming deaths caused by their rockets landing in their neighborhoods as being caused by Israeli attacks. And as I understand it, within the last 3 days, 200 of these Katyusha rockets have landed in Gaza, kind of short of their target of Israel, and doing significant damage. But let's move along. So the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, are really stepping it up. They've attacked hundreds of targets in Gaza, including actual Hamas leadership, personnel. They're taking out a lot of people. They're also going after individual targets like anti-tank systems. There are a number of anti-tank rocket systems all around the entrances to Gaza to try and stop Israeli tanks from coming in. Israel has been trying to take those out. They are possibly, I'm not guaranteeing this, but they are possibly going to go into Gaza for the first time in years and just level all of the Palestinian rocket systems and defense networks and all of that. And the only way to do that significantly is to put boots on the ground. Because as I've said before, the Palestinian or Hamas headquarters is underneath a hospital. And there's no way Israel could bomb that and not suffer the most massive international backlash ever. So they're going to have to put boots on the ground and figure out a way to do this. I hope it doesn't come to that. I really don't. But Hamas and PA have launched over 1,000 rockets at Israel over the last 72 hours. And I haven't seen any signs of them letting up yet. So this could possibly get a lot worse before it gets any better. All right, real quick. I hate to have to cover this story, but it is absolute fact. There is an Israeli city, as I said, known as Lod, and it is 70% Israeli and 30% Israeli Arab. These are Israeli citizens. They have full rights. They can vote. They can drive. Everything. And as I've said before, not too many Arab Israelis are buying property in Gaza and looking to move there, or as we would say in Texas, fixing to move there. Not what they do. They like it in Israel. They have freedom. They can move around. They have they have running water. They have toilets. They have excellent schools. Not the indoctrination madrasas that you have in Lebanon, in Gaza. But every now and then, when Hamas and PA get tensions rising, especially during Ramadan, things break loose. And unfortunately, in Lod, there has been what the mayor describes as a civil war. Many of the Arab Israelis in that city have taken to the streets. They've burned down a number of synagogues, community centers, homes. They're running rampant through the streets, lighting things on fire left and right. I have a video. I won't play you. I don't quite have the time. But you can see a group of young men carrying a torch, marching down a street, stopping at what looks to be kind of a van or a limo, and holding the torch against the rear tire until it lights on fire, and then moving right along the street. Here's a picture right here of a car just completely set on fire. There's video of a synagogue burning. This though I have to show you, and then we'll move on. But that basically the situation has got so bad, the IDF has to move in. There's no way the police in Lod can handle it. There's just too much violence going on. And I will play a video in a moment of what's happening as police do come out and try to restore order. But first, I want to play you this video. This is a burned out synagogue. As you can see, it's basically barely standing, completely fire ravaged. And what you're going to see come out are two containers of the Torah. And please pay attention as they walk out, because those containers are undamaged. And if you look at the destruction of this building and then see how completely pristine those two containers are, there's a word for them that I can't remember, but it is a word for what you would put the Torah in. Please forgive me. But you'll see these, and you're going to have to ask yourself if there's such a thing as God or not, because this is just miraculous. Let me play this for you. You can hear the cameras clicking. Look at those. They are untouched. They are untouched. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. But the violence has gotten so bad in Lod that the mayor has likened it to Kristallnacht, the horrific evening in Nazi Germany when the German populace destroyed dozens of Jewish-owned businesses, attacked Jews in the street. It's Kristallnacht is translated into the Night of the Broken Glass, the Night of Broken Glass, where all of the shop windows were destroyed and glass littered the streets. But that is what the mayor of Lod has likened what's happening there right now. He's likened it to Kristallnacht, and Jews are not apt to make Holocaust comparisons willy-nilly. They take that kind of stuff seriously. All right, YouTube, we are out of here. I actually ended pretty much on time for YouTube today. So I will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, of course. If you would like to see the full show, please join us on DLive or on Trovo. You can see the URLs there on the screen, or there are apps available for either or both. Feel free to put them on your iPhone or Android and join us. In fact, every now and then I'm able to do something special for the folks at DLive, and Trovo allows you to collect their microcurrency just by being in the chat, not even having to participate. So please consider those to allow yourself the full viewing experience of the News Rodeo. So until tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, unless you would like to join me, as always, for my daily morning playthrough of The Witcher 3. I'm about to finish up something, I think, in Novigrad. I can't remember right now, but we are doing our lower level quests to keep going and building up our experience points. So that starts at 8 a.m. Eastern, and the weekend live streams start at 9 a.m. Eastern. So until tomorrow, YouTube, whichever time you prefer, I'll see you. Thanks for being here.